Firstly, thanks very much for welcoming me over here and my associate, Richard. What a lively conversation this morning. How excellent was that? Jersey is awesome. I think if we can't take questions and really understand and go evidence-based, take the emotion out of things and go on the facts, absolutely. But let's be perfectly honest about it. We make most of our decision on emotion, regardless of facts. So we can do the best. I'm an engineer. I base on facts. But I recognise that in an economy, when I say an economy, I don't mean just the money. I mean the ecological system. There are people's emotions. You know, how do you feel about this? You know, really, how do you feel about these technologies coming? How do you feel about your futures? Those facts may well be there, but as there are some well-known politicians on the global stage, when you're presented with facts, you can just ignore them if it doesn't suit you. I genuinely believe that what we should do is actually sit in a room and get the right people in the room to make the points of view and make informed decisions. So anyway, that's my orange box moment. This is me. I'm the CEO and founder of Fylde Coast Energy, and I've been in the nuclear industry for over 40 years, in decommissioning, new build, in the chemical industry, in the MOD industry, very much from an engineer, entrepreneur background, building businesses, starting businesses, growing businesses, creating economies and wealth in areas for people. One thing perhaps you should know about me, and I've got grey hairs to prove this, I don't need to climb that greasy pole anymore. I don't need to, like my erstwhile colleague, I don't need to do this, but I want to do this because I see a need, I see an economic need, and I can actually see the change that it makes to communities. Because if I go back to my old friend Prometheus, because I am a little bit old, if you actually bring energy, you bring opportunity. Now you bring energy and you bring education, you hockey stick with my Canadian friend here, you hockey stick that opportunity. There's a lot of things I've been listening to this morning about some of the feelings of the audience of perhaps what this could mean to you. I don't pretend to know all your issues or problems or worries for the future or what you need. What I do know is we can provide energy that is consistent, reliable, and around for the next 80 to 100 years. So, our first project that we're instigating is in the Fylde Coast. You might recognise the little tower there in the background. It's a little northwest in Lancashire called Blackpool, just the north of that. I should have brought some rock fuel, shouldn't I? I really should have brought some rock fuel. Blackpool's a great place. I was born and bred in Blackpool, and as a kid, it was fantastic. The economy was there. There was a great booming economy. My dad, and I hate to say this, and I'm not a politician, my dad was a toolmaker, and he could, I know. But I always remember him saying to me as a kid that, do you know what, I can pack in work on a Friday and get a job on a Monday. Can't do that. Can't do that now. Really can't. And it's not just areas like this, it's areas around the country. Now again, I believe that there are probably different challenges in Jersey. The ageing population, the healthcare that we were just discussing. So what are you going to do about it? Are we going to have wind farms? Are we going to have a mix? Are we going to have solar? Are we going to have nuclear? There is not one size that fits all. What you need are the right people in the room who can actually make those challenging discussions. I thought it was interesting with the minister saying about the process that they're going through. As somebody who's done major projects around the world and been at places like Fukushima, Chernobyl, Sellafield, you cannot go forward without facts. I'll just give an example to a friend here in the audience. Imagine, excuse me, this is where I do spill the water. If I put that cup of water there and then ask you to actually go outside of the room, don't physically do it by the way, and then tell me how you're actually going to move that without coming into the room. Those are problems that you're challenged with every day as an engineer and in decommissioning a new build. That's the thought process. Now, if I just listen to one point of view, I'll probably get it done, but it's probably not the effective way of getting it done. The fact is, the most efficient way of spending money at the very front is that studies phase, that thinking phase. That's the smartest pound you can ever spend at the beginning of a process. Too often, whether the decisions are influenced by the politics, economics, or a reason behind it, whether it's a large oil company, a large gas company, a large nuclear company, whatever, you need to have counterpoint views so that you can make informed decisions. And then once you've made those decisions and you can underpin those decisions, go with it. Commit and go with it. But the first thing you need to understand are, what are my issues? What are my problems? Are they real problems? Are they made up problems? Just what are they? So are we going to reindustrialise? Is it about economic? Is it about ageing population? Is it about repopulation? What are the real problems and what are the real issues that we have in Jersey? I don't know. But that consultants phase, that smart pound at the beginning of the process should determine that. So now you have a problem. You actually know what your problem is. It's not made up. So how can I solve that problem? Well, there's maybe 20 different ways of solving that problem. Maybe stupid ways. I might take the ceiling off, bring a massive crane and lift that cup of water out. That's pretty expensive. Who knows? Or I might get some known technology, modify it and send a robot in and pick it up and bring it back out. That seems okay, seems cheaper, proven technology, it's been done before. So that's the kind of decision process, and think of it as like I think of it as a narrowing process as you go down. You've got multiple options as you start out when I'm spending this smart pound. Then I've spent the money, I've understood risk, I've understood mitigation. Now I've got 8 left rather than 20. Now I've got 4 left. Now I've got 2 left. Now I've got 1. But I know how I've gone through that process. So I welcomed the fact that A, the Minister accepted the challenge, and B, the fact that he's going through a process. If I was in your shoes, and please believe me, I'm not going to preach to you, I would just ask the question, have they got the right people in the room? I wouldn't worry about how much money they're spending here, because every penny is worthwhile. So I'm just picking that. That's a takeaway for myself from this morning. On that note, I'll go. So, Fylde Coast Energy. Between us, we've got about 170 years of experience in the nuclear industry. On top of that, we've got experience in commercial, finance, legal, and advisors, stakeholder advisors, government advisors, people that help us get to where we want to be and to understand local stakeholders. What's our model and what's our vision? Hopefully this technology works. Our vision, this is our vision, not your vision, is we actually want to create a global program of innovative nuclear and data centres clusters. Now, working with our friend Simon there with JET Technologies, Jersey Energy Technologies, who invited us down here, we've signed a memorandum of agreement to try and work together to see what could be the right solution for energy states. So again, think about the smart pound up front, think about getting the right people in the room. To build a programme, you have to build a model that you can repeat all the way through. So this is the kind of solution we're looking to be bringing into the Fylde Coast. Doesn't look like an industrial nuclear plant. There are actually 4 reactors in there and data centres to the north, because what we want to do here is to actually provide an iconic piece of architecture for the area, that people can live there, work with it, be proud of it, work in harmony with the ecology, all the things we were talking about before, Paul. So what are the migratory patterns? What do the people want? Do they want to ride bikes around it? Do they want to walk around? Do they want to work here? All that stakeholder engagement is going on as we speak to understand it. And this is what we're kind of spitting out. And the kind of feedback we get is, it looks all right. They kind of like it. They don't want a big, ugly building in there. Social industrial regeneration for local communities. So this is about building economies. This is about putting a footprint in the area. This isn't about a developer coming in, making a load of money, and then running out and leaving with it. So I could quote figures and say, look, it's going to bring 3,000-4,000 new jobs into the area. It's going to bring, I don't know, 3 to 6 billion in here. But with most major developments, that money goes out of the area. And again, I was speaking here that usually the things that I've seen in my career, large companies come in, they go to the kids' football teams or the kids' rugby teams, put the name on the shirt, put a bit of money in, put some AstroTurf down, maybe a swimming pool, gone. Profits are in France, Germany, America, wherever. The money does not stay in the area. What we've done here is we've formed a charitable foundation which has non-dilutable shares in the company. So 5% of all profits stay in the area and go for charitable causes. Now, in this area, we've got problems like severe substance abuse. We've got 16-year-old kids living on the street. You know, they come out, they've got no education, no aspiration, and they're in this cycle. And how do you break? No government is going to put severe money into doing that. So I just see it as a duty and a responsibility that if I'm in this position and generating that kind of money, why not? Why not? So we can sit down with the local charities and say, let's drive out a 30-year, a 50-year program. Let's fund it. Let's go to New York. Let's go to Chicago. Let's go to Buenos Aires and understand what's gone on. Let's understand what's good, what's world best practice, and let's pay good salaries for professionals to come in and stay in and solve these problems. You may not have those problems, but this is how, if you've got energy and you've got cheap energy and you actually manage those companies and work in partnership with a local community, this is what you can do. Provide reliable, clean energy and data security. This is the economic piece. And it goes back to Paul's point of getting an end user in mind. I would not go anywhere and just put a nuclear reactor down or a wind farm or whatever. You have to close the end of the loop. You need to understand who your end user is. In this case, because nuclear energy is a tough ask to get going, in this new market, which is what we're doing, we're creating an absolute new market. Hasn't been done before. The technology has, but the market hasn't. So this is 100% privately financed, light touch from government, because we do need government support, we need the regulation. However, what we haven't got are the constraints that government spending can give you. So we can actually determine how we drive the project. We've been talking to the major, I'm sure you've all seen it in the press, about data centres. Data centre usage at the moment is predicted to obviously triple in the next 10, 15 years. What they hadn't factored in there was the AI, oncome of the AI data centres. That really is going to hockey stick. I have no figures with me, I'm afraid, because I hadn't come prepared for that presentation. However, the figures are there. I challenge you to go out, go and find those figures of how big they are and come to your own conclusion. Start with ChatGPT, then ask where the sources have come from, and they will give you those numbers. So what are you going to do? What are you going to do in 20 years' time when you have no sovereign security over your energy, you have no sovereign security over data and data security, you're going to have Russia, China, and whoever else, Iran, whoever else is attacking us, but they're better at it because they are better funded and they have excess energy to get you there. If you have no energy, you have no economy, you have no security. That's a fact. It's an absolute fact, and it's the world that we live in, unfortunately. It's not the world I was brought up in, and I was brought up in the Cold War. I thought all this was finished. Poor naive engineer, but there you go. So that's what we want to do. We want to create this global program. We want to learn from communities. We want to drive in a digital first, where we then go to another community. So all the lessons that we've learned previously, economic, political, socio-economic, engineering, technical, learn from that, then drop it into the next one. Now, it may be a charitable foundation, or it may be a partnership with a local government. We're open to conversations. The point is, you go forward how you want to go on. What is the outcome? What are the problems? Where's my smart pound? How do I spend that smart pound? What's the end result I am trying to achieve? So, enough of the pretty pictures. Let's see what we've got. Why nuclear? SMRs, why now? Does anybody know what an SMR means and what it stands for, by the way? Yeah. Small Modular Reactor. Has anybody heard of an AMR? Yeah? That was a... So an AMR is an advanced modular reactor. The difference between the two, the current SMRs is on proven technology. So we've got Rolls-Royce that are building on the PWR submarines, you know, your Dreadnoughts, your Vanguards, all those that have been sailing around the world forever, and Rolls-Royce is scaling it up. Westinghouse, they have an AP300, which pushes about 300, 320 megawatts. That's based on an AP1000, which is a gig scale reactor. That's got 2 loops, and that's deployed around the world. So we've got operational experience, we've got maintenance experience, we've got proven technology. The Hitachi has been deployed around the world. That's a large reactor, and again, the same thing, scaled down. So our view here, I go back to my point of you take the first taxi off the rank that works. So I'm technology agnostic. But what I am is I need to understand the issues, match the technology, the environment, the politics, the economics for the outcomes that you determine. Then we apply the thought process and the teams to get it done. So the AMRs are completely different. So the ones I just quoted, the SMRs, are a generation 3 reactor. So the old stuff that you've seen before, these are the improved ones. If you walk away from one of these reactors, all the operations, all the maintenance, they have passive safety systems. So they close down by themselves. So all the horror stories you've all seen and heard before don't happen. You just walk away. The new modern reactors that are currently being developed in parallel are amazing technologies. So these are different fuels. These are smaller reactors than the SMRs. The footprint of an SMR for 300 megs is about 20 acres, something like that. For the smaller ones, you can get the pebble bed or the molten salt-based reactors. You can get units of about 50 to 80 megawatts, and you deploy them in clusters. And again, the passive systems here are incredible. But on both style reactors, the benefit that you get is not just electricity, you get heat. So for an SMR, I'm going a little bit engineering here, but we produce steam in the SMRs, we push a turbine round, and we get electricity coming out. So if you tap off at that first turbine, you get heat energy of about 300 degrees-ish, depending upon the technology. And you can use that, it's either chemicals, local heating schemes, whatever you want to use it for. It's there for free. Use it. On the AMRs, they're about 800 degrees. And they don't push the turbine around. They then have separate plant to actually raise the steam, push the turbine, get the electricity. But those are specifically for applications that need heat. 800 degrees is amazing temperature to be able to use. So that's the kind of basic difference, and it's a generational thing that's happening. So right now, deployment is SMRs with AMRs coming rapidly behind. And then we have the fantastic golden chalice of fusion reactors. Get a fusion reactor, basically got a little piece of sun forever. And the joke in the industry is it's always 30 years away. Well, I think now it's 20, so we'll see. So the great thing about this is applying this mindset of what's the problem, what solutions have I got? So then let's have a look at the technologies that will solve it for the next 80 years, then what's for the next 200 years, and what's for the next 1,000 years. That's what we have to think about here. So again, I come back to spend the smart pound at the very beginning and make informed decisions for your great-grandchildren and your great-great-great-grandchildren, because that's what we need to be doing. I haven't even read this. Does it say anything reasonable? Can anyone tell me? So, as I say, that's about the technology. That's the reasons that we should do it and the kind of decision-making you should be making, not to say you, I don't want to preach, as a community, what we should be doing. The reason we've gone for AI data centres is not just because it's vogue at the moment. There's a very real need and a very real worry. The world is a different place. It's a scary place, and the battles aren't necessarily just on the ground, the likes of Ukraine, Gaza, and whatever else is going on in the world. It's done in the ethereal world that I do not understand. But my grandchildren will. So I need to give them the tools to do the job. And we'd be remiss to do that. My grandparents gave me space. They gave me flight. I can fly on holidays. My grandma, I remember her telling me that in her lifetime, she'd seen the Wright brothers and she'd seen an Apollo go to the moon. What are our grandchildren? What legacy are we going to give to our grandchildren? Not just ourselves. I mean, let's be honest, we do need to be selfish about ourselves, but we need to create that platform for generations. We need energy. In all of its forms, we need energy. I've said before, it does provide the sovereign security for energy. So we haven't got a Russian turning off the gas or whatever. We haven't got the volatile energy prices that are going on in the current energy markets. If we're in a partnership with a local government, you can actually get regular prices. I think I spoke before, the good thing about nuclear, you get a good base load. You get a predictable base load. I could actually tell you for the next 80 years how much electricity you're going to get out of an SMR 300. How much space it's going to take, how much it's going to operate, how much it's going to cost to maintain, and more importantly, how it's going to be decommissioned. Because unlike a lot of the industries, and I think you very eloquently put it, you can't compare apples and pears together, which is what numbers out there at the moment for wind, solar and nuclear are trying to do. What we have to do in the nuclear industry is we have to do something called funded decommissioning plans. So before I even cut a sod of earth, in my first 18 months and when I actually apply for a nuclear site licence or apply for a development consent order, I have to tell and persuade government and the HSE, which is the wing called the Office of Nuclear Regulation, I have to tell them how I'm going to decommission the technology I'm planning to put in. What is the land going to look like in 100 years' time? I have to plan for that, and I have to tell how much profits am I putting out to one side in an escrow fund, not just an escrow fund, a fund that actually grows. It's a bit like the restaurant at the end of the universe. Smart pound, great meal at the end of it. And we have to have the reverse IKEA instructions, hopefully better than IKEA. And what that means is, because we've done things digitally and we're not relying on PDF documents, throughout the whole life of these plants, we'll be actually gaining real live data, updating. So as we operate and we find things, that data's stored in the cloud somewhere, on one of our data centres, hopefully. What's changed in operations? What modifications have we done? What's changed? Then the funded decommissioning plans, the technical plans, are automatically changed. So you haven't got massive rewrites as you go all the way through. You use AI, you use cyber, and use the tools to actually make your job easier or make our grandchildren's jobs easier in the future. Then what it will do then is predict the money that we're putting away, is it enough? You know, what's happened? I don't know what's going to happen in the economy in 30 years' time. Is it going to be 2%? Is it going to be 20%? I don't know. But if I've put the tools in place in the first place, the technology won't change, but the economics and the money will, and the interest rates will change. So then the AI will predict, am I on track? Do I need to put more away? And then we will put those cast iron into the shareholding and the constitution of the company. That's the commitment that we put down there. So you've got predictability and you've got surety. Mentioned before, proven, safe and reliable technology. I heard a great simile about safety in the nuclear industry. look online, look for somebody called Xeon Lights. She's an amazing, have you come across Paul?
Xeon Lights?
Yeah. Yeah, she's an amazing science communicator. Ex-activist, extinct rebellion activist. But then she realised that using the facts, using science, nuclear was the best credible option.
I've actually made a video of it.
She's excellent. She's actually one of our advisors, to be perfectly frank.
Completely swapped everything around.
She does. And what she put to me was, look, Steve, if you applied the safety standards that you have in the nuclear industry to the automobile industry, or even a coach, she said, imagine a coach full of kids and people that they get in, put a safety belt on, and the driver drives it off a cliff, hits the bottom, and then everybody takes the safety belt off and walks out without a scratch. Those are the safety standards that we have to apply in the nuclear industry, relatively. If you had to apply that in the automobile industry, there would be no industry. But there's a reason for doing that, because we've learned. I mean, the reason you have cars that collapse rather than you collapse, because in the 50s and 60s, the engineering there, they'd have these great big Cadillacs with chrome mirror holders there, which are a big point. So every time people not wearing safety belts crash, what happens? You're dead. The companies actually said it was the driver's fault and not the car's fault for many, many, many years, many, many court cases, and then eventually the design evolves. In our industry, everything that's happened in the past, we have that data. It's a bit like the aircraft industry. You get a license, and then that information is shared. Any incidents, not disasters, but any incidents are actually reported and is available, and then we bring it in, and then we actually bring it into the designs, which is why we have these passive safety systems. And we actually welcome challenge. Right from grassroots, we have something called the nuclear safety culture. And it doesn't matter if you're the CEO, the tea lady, or the junior engineers, you listen, because they might have a point. You may not see it, you may not understand it, but you have to have ears, and you have to listen, look at the impact, and if it's a relevant and valid point, you take it forward and you put it in. It's called an evolved learning process. That's our nuclear safety culture in there. Provides a cheap and reliable energy source for up to 80 years, because you price it over 80 years. You don't price it over 20 years, you don't price it over 15 years, it's priced over 80 years, and it's a predictable cost. Because the major work is spent in that smart pound at the beginning, getting the licensing, getting the safety systems in place, getting the construction done, getting the commissioning done, the first outages. All that money is an upfront cost, which costs a lot of money. But you spread that pot of money over 80 years, and then the net cost comes down, because obviously you have maintenance, obviously you have outage. An outage is when you replace the fuels, and we're paying for the decommissioning and the waste, the spent waste fuel. Another interesting fact people actually come across, that cup, maybe just a bit bigger, maybe like a can of soda, is the amount of energy and the amount of uranium is used for the whole lifetime for one individual. That's the amount of uranium is used, thereabouts. Think about coal, think about gas, think about how much is used. That's how much used for each of your lifetimes. So, and on that, excuse me. It's going down all the time. And it's very tasty too. So you can read this. The interesting thing is, it creates incredible careers. Long-term, highly paid careers. Now, I don't know what the base wages are here, but I know what they are in the industry. So a graduate coming out, an engineering graduate, coming into our industry, starts on something like about 32 to 38k-ish. That kind of thing as a starting wage, as a fresh-faced graduate. And then you get to a chartered engineer, which used to have that badge. Chartered engineer, section leader, mid-management, you're about 80k-ish in that kind of range. And then obviously you get to senior, C-suite, you're in good six figures. So But these are long-term jobs. And for each power plant, I don't know what size would go down here, but for a pair of SMRs, it's probably about 500 operatives, thereabouts. And the jobs range from technical clerks, nuclear physicists, nuclear chemists, data loggers, operators, maintenance, apprentices, the list goes on. Those are the kinds of jobs that are created that stay in the area. So when your kids or your grandkids go to university, they don't have to stay in the city. They don't have to go abroad. They can come back and have a really good, well-paid career that can actually afford the housing and get a mortgage and stay in the area. That's what it means. I've got a lot of experience at places like Sellafield, where I've worked up there. And I was running a company up there. In fact, look it up, it's called React. And they have a foundation called the React Foundation. Not a big company, but my goodness, do they actually punch well above their weight in terms of social value. They started a foundation which I am unashamedly going to copy and put on steroids for ourselves, that they start going to schools, primary school, 10-year-olds, and actually put the junior engineers in place and get people excited about engineering, get them excited about stuff. This is before there's anything called STEM. This is what they used to do. Then they actually track these kids and give them projects, bring them into the workplace, give them projects to do. One of the projects we did with some sixth formers about, well, it's before COVID, so how long ago that was. We actually set them a challenge. We put one school against the other, one at Whitehaven, one at Cockermouth, and said, we want you to film in real time the curvature of the Earth. The Earth. How are you going to do it? So we put one of our senior engineers with each of the group to mentor them. It was a 6-week process of how they're going to come up with the engineering solutions. And you think about, how do you get a camera up there? How do you film it? How do you retrieve it? How do you actually broadcast it? How do you write a web page? How do you, all that kind of stuff. And they both came up with a fantastic solution, obviously a meteorological balloon. But then they had to put a tracker on it, then they had to put the film on it, and lo and behold, they did. But the whole of West Cumbria at that time, because they actually publicised, so there's marketing in there as well, and there's web development in there as well, the whole of West Cumbria was actually watching this online, seeing it go up, saw the filming, and then they actually put a tracker that they could see where the camera was going, so they had to retrieve it, then bring it back to our place. And the first ones that actually got it back with the valid film won a substantial amount for their school, for their science projects. What we've also done as well is kids that actually go through and go to university, we've actually paid them a salary going through university. They don't have to get scabby bar jobs or work at Costa and work all the hours. They can actually focus on their studies, get their studies done. They don't have to come back and work for us at the end of it. All we're saying is have a good start to your career. The only thing that we ask you to do is just come back in the summer. Give us 4 or 5 weeks in the summer, and that pays for it. It really, really does pay for it. Now, one of those such kids is now the managing director of that company. So when I spun out, brought him, mentored him through from sixth form, he is now the MD. So this is what I mean about putting succession down, putting roots down, and it all comes down to spending that smart pound at the beginning, correctly, with the right people in the room, for the right reasons, for the issues and problems that you have. And energy is always the answer, apart from 42. I think I've said most of that. Are there any issues on there that people want to have a look at, talk about? Does that make sense to you up there? What's next? So, I thought I'd just push it. Now, forgive me, I didn't know I was going to walk into a offshore wind farm maelstrom, I'll be perfectly frank. But hey, let's go. So I just put a few numbers here and perhaps I'll explain them of a quick comparison. So capacity factor, what that really means here, this is this first column. So the higher the number, the better it is, basically. So for instance, solar, wind, that means the amount of time or the percentage of time that it is available to operate at maximum capacity. That's what it means. So to be able to operate at maximum capacity, the required, and I've just picked 300 megawatts just as an arbitrary figure because it's a round number for an SMR. An arbitrary figure, you would need to require, to actually put down 2,850 installed megawatts to achieve it. So that's a big area. I think square foot for square foot, I think you'd probably have to bring the Isle of Wight to fill it with the wind farms to get that kind of energy out there or thereabouts. So it's big area. Offshore wind, it's a bit better, but again, it's the square footage that's the problem. New nuclear, it's got a capacity factor of 90. We only need about between 10, it depends on the technology, somewhere between 10 and 20 acres. But importantly, and Paul went through this point earlier, that's around for 80 to 100 years. So again, the smart pound, you're spending up front, people talk about these astronomical costs at the front, but they're spent for the right reasons at the front to actually give you that full life. So my numbers say for onshore wind, you've got, if you're generous, 20 to 25 years. That's the lifetime before you have to decommission and bring them down. So to get 80 years, you're replacing them every 3 times through that life cycle. So then you've got the physical thing then. If it's an offshore or an onshore, you've got existing ones there. And they're all going to fail around the same kind of time. So where do you put the other ones in parallel that pick up the capacity for that kind of thing? So when you look at economic arguments, really, really look at the economic arguments in here. And just as a quick representation, if you look at the screen there, the full screen with that funny graphic behind, and that little thing in the corner, that's about the footprint of a single SMR that produces 300 megawatts for the next 80 years. That screen that's got the blue is about the same area you would have to do for wind farms and replace every 20 years. That's just a fact. It's just a fact. I'll be honest with you, I am agnostic. I actually believe in a balanced energy. I go back to what are the issues, what are the problems you're trying to solve, now what is the current technology which is future-proofed as we go forward, and what benefit does it bring to us? What does it do for the economy? And again, you can look at the sources I've put in the bottom there. I've used my good friend ChatGPT and asked its sources, and I'm happy with the sources that it's gone for. This is my guess. I don't come from Jersey. I don't live at Jersey. But this is my guess of what I believe this could bring for Jersey. I believe it gives you a reliable and independent energy source. It gives you sovereign control over your energy and provides a good economy for the next 80 years. And in fact, your grandchildren's children's children, it's going to give them a career.
Sorry, could I ask what size this is for?
Well, there is no size there, Paul. This is just the fact of nuclear energy.
Well, just the way you're saying the 6 billion inward investment.
Right, okay, sorry. So that's just a pair of 300s.
300.
Yeah, pair of 300s. And it doesn't matter which one of those technologies. And those are there or thereabouts figures, Paul.
Roughly.
Yeah. So don't hold me to task. Be gentle, crowd. Be gentle with me.
Do you think 2 300s would provide all the energy for 100 our population?
Oh my goodness, and more besides. So a 300 will power about 500 homes, 500,000 homes. Yeah. So I think your usage is about what, 70 megawatts, somewhere around there. Your energy usage.
They vary between, at the moment, they vary between 60 and 160
right
in the day. And the future is 100 to 200.
Fine. So yes, you've got an excess energy source, but the opportunity that brings of then doing direct wire to either AI data centers or cyber centers or new energy like hydroponic farming, wet industrial, it gives you that opportunity, and it gives you the opportunity of export at a price that you determine. You can actually then wire out to Guernsey and the rest of the island states, and even France, and then you are in control, and then you determine that price. because then it becomes a supply and demand. Because if the demand's there, you can actually set that economy on there rather than being somewhere else. The downside is I can't give it tomorrow. This is 10 years. So you need a transition plan. So again, understand where the end is. Personally, I would, and this is our model, is to put down the demand first. Put down the AI data centers, and there is end of the month problems and there are end of the world problems. Use gas or excess electricity or wind, whatever, to actually then create that economy that then helps fund building the SMRs or the AMRs if it's ready by then. Then you transition across to SMRs, and that then gives you your data and your energy security for the next 80 years. That would be my suggestion, rather than just going binary, to be perfectly frank. But I don't know your issues, I don't know your problems. All I know is what energy brings and how do you transition across there. Sorry, there's another question. Yeah, sorry.
So the other question is, my understanding about nuclear is that it's always the decommissioning is really difficult, what you do after the 80 years.
So, as I mentioned before, that we have to do funded decommissioning plans. So what that means is not, I'm going to allow about 50 quid per square foot or something like that. That will take, before I'm actually given a nuclear site licence, somewhere between 3 and 4 years to actually go through detailed plans of the technology we're proposing, the actual current baseline ecology, then actually cast it forward to say how we're going to do it, full designs, full technology that's needed and needs future-proofing, costed in today's terms, and then put it through a financial model and do the best you can for your net present values coming forward. Then you have an allocation, and personally, I use a 10% factor on top of that to then, on top of whatever the economists tell me, to make sure I've got enough money coming in. And then when you actually, 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, 40 years, as I mentioned before, those figures are automatically adjusted by the AI that we use, or will use. So that if I need to up that figure or down that figure, I can do it. But I'm doing that real-time data. And I'll know how my operations are going, I know how my maintenance are going, and I'll need to know if it needs changing.
So the current ones, am I right in thinking sometimes it takes 35 years or something to decommission?
Yeah, absolutely. Yeah. But again, those were designed not for decommissioning. They were designed to be built, and they were built very quickly. There are different. Don't confuse old and big gig to new nuclear. Do not. That's an apple and a banana. It's just that it's a fruit.
They're modular, so they're in packages. So there's the whole concept of decommission is completely different because they're in chunks and packages, and there's ways of picking them up and moving them off. Yeah. Completely different.
And for instance, remember that scenario that I gave you of how you're going to move that cutway outside the room? So I spent a lot of time, I was asked by the government 2 years after Fukushima to go and help advise the Tokyo government as to how they can go about it, because they didn't have a decommissioning mindset. We were brought up at Sellafield and places. I mean, those are tough places. They're a tough breeding ground. They really are for engineering. It's fantastic. I mean, there are world-class problems there, but my goodness, do you have to really get stuck in? So they were used to operating. They were just operators, and that's all they've done. They have never had to decommission anything. Then Fukushima happened. They didn't know what to do. They were reactive all the time. So they asked us to go in. And again, remember saying about spending that smart pound. Remember saying about getting to know the facts. The fact is, you don't know what you're walking into. So we had to develop technology. One of my companies that span out, a really innovative company, again, look it online, called Createch, they can see radiation. So the problem is radiation, because you can't get close to it. Really, really bad radiation. You can't. You can do in small doses. So how do you move that cup in a room for radiation? So what technology? Cameras, the lenses go foggy. So, how do you use technology to do that? So we developed a technology that went into the operating deck of Unit 2 and dose mapped the whole of the area. That had never been done before in the world. Now, there's a unit called sieverts and millisieverts, and a sievert is big, like really big. If you had a sievert in this room, none of us would be talking. Nobody experiences that and has ever experienced that. We actually mapped that. We got it down to what the isotope levels were. Then we put it in 3D mapping and started doing what-if scenarios. What if you do this? What if you do that? And I liken it, and I always use this similar, to peeling an onion. You know what's on the outside. You have no idea what's inside. But what you can do is, with what you know, use your money and your expertise to then take that first layer to find out what's behind the next layer. Then you find out what's behind the next layer. What's behind the next layer. Eventually, you solve that problem based on knowledge. So remember I said about the screening process, that you get options and you come down. It's knowledge-based, and it's an effective way of spending that smart pound. So all those lessons that we've learned over the years have gone into the designs of these new nuclear technologies. Sorry, question. Yeah, fire away. Don't fight, please.
I'd like to make can I make a point?
Of course you can.
2 points. One is, I actually think, given what they're trying to do, get the economic situation for the future of Jersey right, what would be a very good idea is for this to go ahead in the sense of you look at all the islands as a whole. Say you put the nuclear thing on Jersey, but you invite the people to come. You ask a data center there for AI, etc. So you propose, a proper proposal with the AI built in, as it were, which gives you a lot of usage, by the way. It gives you a customer for the energy big time. You then combine it with all the other Channel Islands. You combine it and you plan ahead that way. Now that way, and all I've heard is pure sense from you, by the way, in your way.
I can only go down from here.
But you also said you have to have the right people in the room at the beginning, which I think has gone wrong here, frankly.
Yeah, I cannot comment, and I'm not going to get into that discussion. Yeah.
I haven't really commercial future anything in this, but honestly, if you wanted a plan for the economy of Jersey, a plan to get an AI centre in Jersey, look at the quality of our life, look what we do, we get an AI centre going, we have the nuclear reactors there, we have your small...
And the local government being a partner to it.
Pardon?
And the local government being a partner to it. Yeah.
You've then got total control, and you've got an attractive proposition for outside money to come in and do it. Now, that's the sort of project they should be looking at. Not a stupid wind project, because at the end of my talk, I was
Guys, let's close that down here. I am not going to get into that. We've had a whole morning of that. So can we just... Sorry, there's a question over here.
Do you have comparative costs compared to gas, coal and oil?
Right, okay. Gas is the cheapest to deploy. Simple as that. It's quick, simple, and you know what? If we're going to get an AI data center and there's no other energy source in the short term, I would probably put LNG down there and fire up a turbine. Because you have to understand what are the practicalities. What's the ideology and what's the practicality? How do you actually get there? So again, the right people in the room, what is the correct transition plan? And that data is out in the world. I do not have it to hand.
Doesn't the world run on coal mostly, like India, China?
Yes, they do indeed. Yes, they do indeed. And good luck to them. Great. So they recognise that they need energy. They don't need coal. They don't need gas. They don't need nuclear. They need energy. So the point is here, we need to be energy agnostic. So what is right for us politically? What is right for us economically? What is right for the right technical solution? Then let's down select and correct. Now, if you're going to throw out coal, which we have, that's a non-starter for us around here and in the UK for the future. And we're not going to make a green-based argument over this.
But if reform come in, that's out the window. Net zero's finished.
I can't go off if and buts. I can go off facts. and again, this is probably important too. I remember I said at the very beginning, you can provide facts and people take different spins. What's emotive to you? How does this feel to you? We need to roll all these kind of arguments and understandings, because there may be something that I do not understand. There may be something that, perhaps you build a coal mine and dig something up for... I don't know if the facts tell you that. But I've got to tell you, that would be the bottom of the list.
We've got centuries of coal, haven't we, on the mainland?
And we've got fracking, we've got all of that. But do you know what hasn't happened? Is a holistic, integrated energy strategy for the UK that gives sovereign security for our future. And it needs not nukes coming in and saying, yes, this is the only answer, or wind farms coming and saying, this is the only answer. Let's get the facts, the right people in the room, and have a proper discussion. And now, if the issue is the economy here, well, what's going to give us the best economic basis? What gets us to the end result? Maybe there is a transition for 20 years. I don't know that answer.
As long as people know that, I think coal's unfairly demonised because it is actually clean. It's fluidised bed. There's no pollution.
Apart from all the people that had died from the back and fibrosis and stuff. Sorry, there's a...
Okay.
Thanks very much for the talk. It's been really interesting.
I haven't finished yet, mate. I'll go if you want.
It's okay. I was going to ask him a question. I agree with what you're saying, but I think for me, and for maybe some other people who are in, the concern around, you know, the potential once in a century cataclysmic event.
Yep.
We are a coastal island. You know, we can see from the north, we can see the Fylde sites. And it isn't unthinkable to think of a kind of once in a century kind of tidal wave coming in from the Atlantic, which obviously, if there was no nuclear power, would be a problem for Jersey, but obviously with an added risk like nuclear. And so how do small SMRs compare with old technology?
So there'll be more people killed in the tsunami than there would in the SMR. It's a fact. There's more people killed in the landslide and the tsunami than there was at Fukushima. That's the fact.
Did anyone die? Did anyone die? No one died. No one died from the actual radiation.
But the great thing, it's a horrible thing to say, the great thing about it, but the positive that comes out are the lessons learned. So when you look at the 1 in 200 event, we rather than ignoring climate change and rather than ignoring facts that are out there, use those and then run the models, spend the smart pound at the beginning, and what's our predictive model for the next 500 years? Not the next 50 or 100. Salami slice that, bring it back and say, right, okay, these are the sea defences that we need. These are the passive backup systems we need. If all else fails, what can we do? If I'm the last person standing, what am I going to do to safeguard the rest of what's going on? Then you come from there. You build it up. You build it on fact. Then obviously, you have to put the economics on because every safety accident is preventable, but not always cost effective. So there are insurers out there, which I know full well, that do all those and run those numbers. We tend to go far conservative on there. Does that answer your question?
Just to speed things up a little bit, could we hold the questions now? Just allow you to finish your presentation and then open up for questions.
Not long to go, guys.
Okay, no, just to allow the talk to come out.
So yeah, those are my thoughts of what this energy could actually provide for Jersey. I might be wrong, but I kind of think that I'm not a million miles out. This is something I want to talk about briefly, our socioeconomic values. And this kind of really means a lot to me and one of the reasons why I'm doing this. Now, it may not mean as much to you, but what we're putting down are 3 or 4 generations of energy. That's careers. So that means kids that are in school are the future operators. Their unborn grandkids are going to have careers. They're going to be able to afford to pay for houses in Guernsey and Jersey. I don't know what the issues are, what the quality of the education is, so please forgive me. But it gives you the opportunity to do that. I don't know if you've got a homeless problem or a drug substance abuse problem. I'll be very surprised if you haven't got a substance abuse problem. Every city seems to have that underbelly. We can put programs in place that are funded, that come all the way through, long-term, 30, 50, 60, 80-year programs that are protected, ironclad, non-dilutable shares that brings it in, or whatever you want to use it for. Because at the end of the day, if we're generating those profits and it's governed by you, I'm not going to whiz it out. Don't get me wrong, I like to sit in the pile, but I'll be dead soon, you know. I can't be around forever. So those are just a few ideas. And finally, one thing that always goes on about this, and it's a big thing in any industry, is where are we going to get the people from? Just where are we going to get the resources from? These highly paid technical jobs, we're going to magic them out of the air? Well, the great thing about this is we've got a 10-year programme to get us there. So I'll just introduce you to our future operators and maintainers. Meet your future. And you know, on a serious point though, we have a duty and a responsibility to give these guys a future and a security. That's me. Good. I'm just going to grab the rest of my water over there because I'm a bit dry.
Drink the water, but we'll have some more questions now.
Sure.
Shut it off, so I would like to open it up again.
Cheers. Fire away.
We're seeing an investor in 10 minutes, just to let you know, mate.
Right. if the answer's yes, and I'm going to have very, very quickly. If the answer's no, say.
I got a question, Steve. On the practicalities, I don't know if you're familiar with the topography of Jersey.
I've only through, and please, I do apologise, just through Google Maps.
Well, it's 45 square miles, which apparently I've just calculated is 29,000 acres.
Uh-huh.
You're saying you need about 20 acres for
A single unit, yeah. I would like to operate on something like about a 30 to 50 acre plot, because for construction you get lay down areas, all that kind of practicalities and stuff. But the new AMRs that come in, the footprints are much smaller. Yeah. But you keep about 30 to 50 acres in your head, that kind of thing.
Hi Steve, very interesting talk. I guess I want to partly make a comment and kind of turn it into a question. But let's just imagine hypothetically that there was a plan to install a 500 megawatt SMR in Jersey.
Which don't exist right now. But
and that's of the order of what Jersey's looking for, because I'm still having a problem getting my head around the fact that Jersey wants to turn itself into an energy superpower rather than to protect the environment.
Mm-hmm.
So you install a 500 megawatt nuclear power station. I'm very pro-nuclear myself, so I don't think this idea is crazy. And you create this huge surplus of electricity.
Mm-hmm.
Who are you going to sell the surplus to?
AI data centres. They are so power hungry.
What I'm saying is you create the demand.
Yeah.
You create the demand by advertising to the world. This is what we want to do. This is what
I missed that.
Yeah. So again, starters mean to go on. Get the end user, a thirsty end user. Yeah.
But you're looking then at it's growing the population of Jersey and putting in
100%.
You people of Jersey.
Absolutely. Growth in the grassroots. 100%.
This is what the government should be looking into.
Absolutely.
This should be what they get a good team of people together to do and look into, because this is a proper,
Likely unavailable.
a proper solution.
How is it exported?
How is it the electricity? Cables. So if you think that there are cables that go from New York to right across the world, the technology is there. There's underground cables all over the place, and I believe, obviously you got one from France. There's one over to Guernsey, so you can piggyback on that, and you can dictate to Guernsey.
But is it also not fair to say that it doesn't have to be that big?
No.
You could go smaller. You could look,
Yeah.
so that you're not risking. And then if it's turning out to be success, then you add another module, so you can grow as you learn.
Yeah, you capacity factors down. So
there's
generally,
smaller modular nuclear
generally you
reactors.
want a twin to get something like about a 95, 97% capacity factor, i.e. how much is the maximum power available for. You'd want to operate in a pair, if you could, or a cluster. Guys, I've one more, because I've got to do a runner apparently.
Quick question. How much does this rely on government subsidies?
It doesn't. 100% privately funded. So the relationship we have with Simon and the Jersey Energy Technologies, and your point about, which was very well made, about exporting on cables, is exactly what we're developing together. That's what our MOU is about. So we're putting in parallel plans that the government could actually draw on and look at.
Okay, thank you.
Thanks very much. Thanks for your time, guys. Thank you. Oh, by the way, just one final. If you want to have a look at the kind of project what we're doing, just jump on the website. It's dead easy. It's all the W's. Fylecoastenergy.com. Thank you very much, guys.
Thank you very much.